Welcome back to a walk through the tarot. This is card 13, an archetypal image of death. Bodies lie beneath the horse's feet while death stares directly out of the card. In the previous video, the Fool met the Hanged Man where he learned about acceptance. So, despite feeling fear, he takes a deep breath and waits to see what lies ahead. We're going to look at the background to this card, explore its symbols, and see what messages it might have for the Fool as he continues with his journey. By the 15th century, the plague known as the Black Death had swept across Europe, killing over half the population. It was a time when medical knowledge was basic, accidents common, and childbirth often fatal, so death was a constant presence. Early tarot decks portrayed death with skeletal realism. In a Visconti Sforza tarot, he carries a bow to show how the end of life could be quick and unavoidable. Other decks use the medieval image of the Grim Reaper who cut down the living with a scythe, while mass-produced tarot of this time showed death on horseback. Originally the card was unnamed. The image was enough. This continued as tarot moved across Europe in the 17th century, where the French Marseillaise-styled cards showed death prowling on foot through fields full of the dead. When tarot was adopted by the French occultists in the 17th and 18th centuries, Antoine Court de Gebelin claimed it contained ancient teachings from the Egyptian Book of Thoth. De Gebelin said the death card represented a spiritual rather than physical transition. He was the first person to call the card death, as well as connecting it to the idea that 13 was the number of bad luck or misfortune. A century later, Eliphas Levi continued the theme of transformation. He said death could refer to the ending of old habits and ideas which were no longer serving their purpose and needed to be discarded to make way for more spiritual ways of life. Levi also suggested the bodies on the ground showed that while physical death was inevitable, individual actions and ideas would continue. In the Waite-Coleman-Smith deck, a skeletal death in black armour rides on a white horse. Instead of the Grim Reaper's scythe, a black flag is emblazoned with a white rose. The people in this card seem both dead and alive, while in the distance a morning sun rises between two pillars. The Fool is more than a little afraid, but has learned tarot images don't always represent their surface appearance. Despite its name, death is also about life. So let's take a closer look at the symbols on this card. The Fool sees a skeleton dressed in black armour, which shows his impervious nature. Death is a one-way journey which can't be prevented or stopped. On the helmet is a red feather. In tarot, red is the colour of passion and creative energy. The feather is a symbol of the courage needed to face transformative change. The black flag has a white rose, which Waite called the mystic rose. He associated it with occult symbolism around new beginnings, such as someone going through the process of initiation. When our Fool set out on his journey, he carried a white rose. It showed his purity, a symbol of an untainted soul with all the potential for spiritual development, but who hasn't yet found their right path. The horse is also white, which is said to represent purification. Whether death is physical or a process leading to spiritual rebirth, it will cause change, but in the case of an esoteric journey, the experience of death can be cleansing. The horse steps over a king who might or might not be dead. Kings and emperors were separated from their citizens by great wealth and privilege. The death card is showing those accustomed to and protected by their power and gold were still mortal. A bishop has lost his ceremonial staff or crozier. He holds out his hands, pleading or beseeching. Clergy were partially protected by doctrines dealing with life's mysteries, so he may be begging to be spared or is maybe disputing death's authority. The young girl looks away as if ignoring what's happening. The world she knows is falling apart, and she may be unwilling to surrender to the truth that everything in life comes to an end. The smaller boy is staring directly at death. He looks curious and may be more able to accept change because he doesn't yet have the knowledge of how it might impact his life. In the background is a river. It could be the river Styx from Greek mythology, a boundary between the living and the dead and a symbol for letting go of what's been loved. Water represents emotions but is also a symbol for movement, and rivers are in a continual state of transition. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said you cannot step into the same river twice, and this constant state of change is an integral part of the human condition. In the distance, a sun rises between two white pillars. It's signifying a new day with hope and optimism for fresh beginnings. Pillars appear throughout the tarot archetypes. They symbolise balance between opposites, but can also be used to mark places to pass through. It's not an easy card. The Fool needs to swallow his fear, take a deep breath, and be ready to listen. So, let's see what messages Death has for him. The cards in this second row have been teaching the Fool about his unconscious self, the place where he's repressed difficult feelings and experiences through a lack of knowledge and tools to deal with them in the world of conscious awareness. He's being called upon to act because the death in this card is the death of who he was. From this point forward, he will never be the same. The step requires commitment, courage, and another leap of faith because he doesn't know what lies ahead. Death involves the unknown. It represents space between doors where one is closing and the other opening, but in between is liminal, neither one place or the other. Death represents the next stage of the Fool's inner transformation because he has to allow for the disintegration of his old self. But all tarot archetypes can be interpreted in different ways, and death might represent fear of change, resulting in stagnation. We might hold on to situations which are unhealthy, but offer familiar forms of comfort. An inability to move forward can lead to inertia, which in turn breeds stress and depression. Life is there to be used and lived, but sticking to habits or refusing to let go of custom and tradition is difficult and often frightening. The Fool needs to feel the fear, but still move forward. Only then will he experience the transformation being offered. The tarot has been showing him an alternative path, but most of his experiences have been relatively passive. Now it's time for action. The outer mask and identity he's always worn must be laid aside so his unconscious layers can fully rise to the surface. When our Fool set out on his journey, he stood on the edge of a cliff, seemingly unaware of the risk. Meeting death is a similar situation, but this time he can see and feel the potential danger, and without any guarantees of what lies ahead, he's afraid. If he follows death's invitation, the next archetype the Fool will meet is the final card on this row. The Temperance Angel will offer the reassurance he'll need to move on to the last set of cards, which will contain even harder challenges, but he doesn't yet know this. So, join us for the next step on a walk through the tarot.